Hello, welcome to the latest installment on the 172nd Fighter Wing channel. Please feel free to click the like and the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content and if you want to let me know that I'm doing a good job. And if you don't think I'm doing a good job, tell me how so I can do better. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll just get right into this one. So we're going to deviate a little bit from my normal routine on this one because usually I'll go through a historical snapshot of the aircraft I'm reviewing, some of the background and so forth. But today we're going to do things a little differently because we're reviewing not so much just the airplane's history, but the models themselves in a little bit more of a comparison style detail. So let's begin by describing what we're actually looking at today. So we have on review the Sentry Wings F-14D, the JC Wings F-14A in Iranian Islamic Republic Air Force low-vis colors, the HobbyMaster Iranian F-14 in the 2014 Painted Asia minor colors. And then in the back, a little bit over there, is going to be the Calibre Wings 1980s Persian Tomcat. So I'm just going to put these guys together so we can talk about some of the traits and what I think about them in the event that you're looking at potentially comparing these for purchase yourself. Obviously, with commerce being what it is and the impact of the pandemic, going to in-person stores is a little bit difficult for some of you guys out there. So it'd be useful to have all of these in the same place at the same time to kind of talk through the pros and cons of each a little bit. So I'm not going to go into super granular detail. I'm sure there's people who probably could do that very, very easily, but I'm just going to talk through the high points. So hopefully anybody watching this will get a decent idea of what to compare to and kind of to make them informed purchasers when they're looking at some of these models. Because the truth of the matter is, I'm going to compare these guys and I'm going to mention who is going to be ahead in these four. But the truth of the matter is they're all good models. Even the JC in the middle here, which is probably the most inexpensive of the four. So let's just jump into this guy. We'll start with 4 points that we're going to talk to here. And the first point we're going to talk to is going to be feature accuracy. So feature accuracy is going to refer to just general traits about the models and are those correct to the actual aircraft. And you'll kind of see that as I talk through this. So we'll start with the nose and work our way back. So the good news is they're all four of these are really well done overall. The maybe not so good news is they're all also flawed in different ways. So sometimes people tend to get a little brand centric. They'll say that, you know, Sentry is always better than X, or JC is always better than brand Y, or what have you. But the truth is they're all very close in terms of overall quality when you look at what they get right and then what they don't necessarily get right. So we're going to start with the pitot tubes on the Calibre in the back over here, and then on these three in the front, the pitot tube is going to be this little bit right here that is going to be pointing out the front of the aircraft. The pitot tube is what's used by the computers on the airplane to determine speed. I think some of them use them for barometric pressure, instrumentation like that. You might see some test aircraft out there with a really long one, and generally that comes into play when you're looking at, you know, testing and you need clean data to evaluate aircraft performance and things like that. So on these models, the only one that is not a metal pitot tube is going to be the JC wings right here. This is actually plastic, and the fact that I have to explain that it's plastic kind of tells you how convincing it is. It looks metal, but it's plastic, and I've got my thoughts are kind of mixed on that because obviously it doesn't feel quite as solid as metal, but truth be told, it probably doesn't make a difference in the overall presentation of the aircraft. And frankly, a plastic pitot tube is a lot less likely to actually hurt you. So this is something that I came across when I was putting the metal pitot tube in the Calibre. So for the Calibre wings over here in the back, and then for the JC wings right here in the front, the pitot tubes come separately in the box. So you have to take the little pitot tube, that little itty bitty plastic bit, it's like tweezers in your thumbs, preferably away from your carpet, and you have to push that into the receptacle in the nose to complete the model. You have to do that when you open the package and put it together. And I'm not a real big fan of having to put things together when people buy models, but I figure maybe they just do that because if they put it in like the same time with the model as you do with the HobbyMaster and the Century wings, with those models, the pitot tube is actually part of the model when you open the box, so you don't have to mess around with finding a little plastic or metal bit and then having to push into the nose. You can just open the box and there it is. So with those, I have to say I prefer that approach because you're not messing around with little parts that you can lose. And I think maybe the rationale that HobbyMaster, maybe the rationale that Calibre and JC wings went with is they don't want people hurting themselves when they try to pull the model out of the box and then maybe, you know, cut themselves or put a hole in their finger when they try to reach in the front and grab it. I don't know. Maybe that's the reasoning, but I prefer this approach where it's part of the model from the beginning instead of having to fish out a little piece and dig around in the box to try to find it, and then you have to put it in, which on both, well, the JC wings, actually that one was pretty simple. I just pushed it in, put a little bit of white glue on the end, and it went in, no fuss, no muss. The Calibre in the back over here, that was a different story. This one I had to, what if I had to do on that guy? I had to like take a mallet, like a soft rubber mallet, and I had to push the piece in because it just would not go in with finger pressure alone. And I think maybe there's some tolerance concerns going on there, which we'll talk to later in the parts accuracy and the logistics sections of this video. We'll talk to the tolerance piece of it because each of them has their own quirks with tolerances, and I'll get into that a little bit later to the detail. So the pitot tube in the front, you have to put that in separately for the two of these guys, and I'm a bigger fan of having it be part of the model from the beginning. If you don't agree with that, leave your thoughts in the comment section. I would like to hear what you have to say in supporting the idea of keeping that piece separate from the rest of the aircraft when you open the box. But coming back to the topic at hand, they all look good, they all look accurate, and I suppose maybe one could throw an oppositional thought to the JC wings because it's plastic, but it doesn't really look any different than metal. And the Iranian aircraft tend to be a little bit, worn anyway. They have that kind of weathered appearance, which it does really well, by the way, if you can tell from the montage shots earlier. So having a little bit of having a plastic, a little bit of a grayish tint to that actually works for this model. So that's going to be the nose piece of it, like the very front end of it. Then we get to the gun, the cannon area, and this is kind of interesting. So the cannon on these guys, they're a little bit shaped differently, and each company does the cannon area a little bit uniquely. So the HobbyMaster and the Century, they have rather prominent cannons. You can kind of see that here where it comes out pretty noticeably from the body of the aircraft. And then you can see, maybe because of the lighting, it might be harder to tell, but it comes out on the HobbyMaster in the same general shape as the Century over here. Unfortunately, because of shooting limitations and having to keep all of these models in frame, I wasn't able to get the Calibre turned in a direction where you can, this little guy in the back over here, I was trying to find a way to shoot all four of these in the same frame, and it's kind of a challenge. Just shooting one F-14 model is kind of a tough thing because it fills the screen pretty easily, and then you add four in there, and it's a handful to keep them all in a shot that either they all fit or they all fit and it makes sense to actually show them this way so I can talk to them. instead of it just being this really neat shot that hides all the details and then this video is useless. So coming back to the subject on the nose piece, the cannons. So the Calibre wings version, they have kind of a similar aesthetic to the JC wings right here, where it's pretty shallow. In this area, I have to give the nod to HobbyMaster and Century, because the cannon detail is rather noticeable. It's finished in a really good way. Bonus points should actually go to JC Wings about this, and you'll know why when I talk to the logistics piece of this. But the cannon is kind of shallow, but it's actually rather well detailed there. So again, the Calibre kind of has a similar aesthetic here. So as far as which one is better, I'm more of a fan of having a noticeable cannon port on these models. You might argue they're a little bit large compared to the actual airplane, but if they're too large compared to the actual airplane, then these are too small compared to the actual airplane too. So which is better? It's going to be a matter of personal preference on that. I personally like a more prominent cannon on my models. Call me American, you know, big old gun. So another bonus point that goes in favor of the Century and the HobbyMaster, the cannon vents on the side are molded in. So on the A model here, the A model Tomcats have just vertical vents. The B and the Ds have a different cannon vent configuration, where it's more of your NACA triangular cuts into the airfoil of the side, kind of the NACA triangular air duct deal. And on the Century, these are molded in as well. So you have molded cannon detail on the Century and molded cannon vent detail on the HobbyMaster. For the Calibre in the back over here, it's just a decal. They did the same kind of appearance with the vents. However, the vents on the Calibre are just in the form of a decal that went on the side. So, and as you can see from the JC wings right here, there's no vent whatsoever at all on this one. And yeah, so they must have missed the memo on that guy, because oof, there's supposed to be at least some kind of ventilation or some kind of appearance of that on there, and it's not even on the model. So yeah, that's going to be a point off for those guys. But in terms of the accuracy of it, I think that the HobbyMaster, again, the Century Wings and the HobbyMaster are pretty much the same, whereas the Calibre is going to take the third place position because they actually do have a vent detail on the side, but it's in the form of a sticker. So not quite as satisfying to me as having a molded in vent that looks like it's an actual gun port on the side, right? Whereas JC Wings, they don't even have it on the model. So that puts them obviously at fourth place in that category. So then we can work our way back on the aircraft and talk to the canopy. And this is another area that, you know, we just gave HobbyMaster and Century Wings kudos for their appearance on this piece here. But then when we get to the canopies, now we're starting to get into some areas where the JC Wings and the Calibre take the lead on this guy. Both JC Wings and Calibre do their canopies differently. Calibre has it where it's molded into, they have like a little, it's hard to tell from here, but it's basically molded into the front top of the sheet metal of the nose. So it's all one component here, and it looks really nice. It's a really well done piece of detail, and Calibre deserves some props for doing it that way. The other three all have pieces that just go on top of the nose. So the nose is just kind of made in a certain way, and then they put the canopy forward canopy on top of it. So with the HobbyMaster and the Century Wings, you can see that they tried to do it as accurately as they could, but you can tell that they kind of had to mess with the angles a little bit to get it all to work. And the fact that they have the actual body of the model, and they have to put this little canopy piece on top of the body, means it looks a little bit different from what you would expect on the actual aircraft. Whereas JC Wings right here, they molded it in a way that it looks kind of basic, but it actually does work. It looks pretty close to the actual airplane, And while it's not molded into the body of the nose like the Calibre does, where it's all like one piece here, it looks pretty close to accurate, and it's a lot closer to the actual airplane than the ones on the Century or the HobbyMaster. So in the respect of the canopy in the setup of that, the nod actually goes to predominantly Calibre for getting that done. And then JC takes the second place position right here. This guy takes second place. And then I guess you can say there's a tie for third, because they basically, the Century and then the HobbyMaster do the same thing. So, right. There's just a lot of stuff here to kind of look at, where each brand has its area where it's ahead, and then another brand has it where it's not. So let's talk to some of the kind of the feature accuracy here. We're going to keep going and look at the wing glove area, kind of this part right here. In this, Calibre takes the point 100%. They take this one because they actually model the glove vein vents and all that stuff pretty accurately on their F-14s. So the glove veins, for those who don't know, it's a little triangular aerodynamic piece that comes out the side when the airplane is above the speed of sound. As I understand it, it is intended to improve the aerodynamics of the aircraft above the speed of sound so that they can turn at 7 Gs supersonically. This wasn't a terribly useful thing, so I think the Navy actually removed these glove vanes for their B and the D models, which is what this guy over here is modeled after. So Century actually gets a pass here because there's not supposed to be glove vanes on the D version, which is this version right here. You can tell, obviously, for those who don't know, the D version is going to be like the latest Tomcat, so it has different engines, it has different avionics, and it has a targeting pod right here, and then you can even see over in this spot right there, the 2,000-pound laser guided bomb. And the idea is it's kind of the Navy's answer to the F-15 Strike Eagle for the Air Force. These were put in service pretty much around 2003. They served in Iraq and Afghanistan in the air-to-ground close air support role before being retired in 2006 because the F-14 just cost too darn much money to maintain. I think I've touched on that in my previous F-14 videos, but yeah, the Navy was spending something like 55 man-hours of maintenance for every hour their F-14 Bs and Ds were spending in the air. So you just can't sustain a combat operational force when you're spending 1 plus an additional amount of a working week to get 1 hour of flight time out of an airplane. I mean, 55 hours of maintenance doesn't sound like an enormous number, but if you multiply that times the 12 hours their F-14 spent on close air support missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's a big number. Okay, taxpayers paying a lot of money to keep those F-14s flying. So, I mean, you compare that to the Super Hornet, and it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of the cost savings. So, anyways, enough of that tangent. Coming back to the topic of what we're comparing here, the glove vanes topic means basically the Calibre is going to probably take first place for having modeled them. And I believe on this guy, you can actually take the landing gear out. There's a little part inside the wing glove that lets you pop those out if you want to display your Calibre F-14 with the glove vanes deployed. So they take props for that. Century is going to be a second place. And I say second place because they don't have glove vanes. So honestly, you could probably categorize that as not applicable. But the rest of the modeling of it's actually pretty decent. There is a seam, a noticeable seam here, which is a bit out of character because literally every other model here actually doesn't have a seam right here that's particularly visible. Even Calibre, which actually has a glove vane part that pops out, their seams are pretty small. There's a seam line right underneath the USS Theodore Roosevelt line, which is just, ugh, it stands out. So, especially when the model isn't even supposed to have glove vanes in the first place. So, in that respect, they're going to take a second place. These guys are pretty much tied for the back because they're both F-14As and neither has the modeling for the glove veins really done. HobbyMaster's got a bit of a seam setup here where they've demarcated the paint lines, and that's of course because it's a two-tone airplane in reality. So it's hard. I'm not sure I can really say that it's poorly defined. You can kind of see a small area where it looks like maybe they put some engraving to where there could be some detail on that where you would see a glove vein potentially come out. So I'm not going to say the HobbyMaster is actually that bad. Maybe they could take second place after Calibre, and then Century would actually take the third place role because of that seam line on the wing glove area. JC Wings totally blew it with that. They don't have any detail or any markings here that suggest the presence of a wing glove area for the glove veins, and there should be because it's an F-14A. And as far as I know, the Iranians have not disabled it yet. So if it were a D model, it wouldn't be an issue. However, there does need to be some kind of detail here for the slot for the wing gloves. I don't see that there. So Calibre takes the point on that one. Now, as far as those all go, you can kind of see how comparing these guys together, it's not so much a matter of one brand being the best. It's like each brand is good at something, and then it gives ground in something else. So hopefully that helps you guys out a little bit. We'll talk now about the paint accuracy, and this is going to be a really quick section because all four of them have done a really good job of showing this. Even the JC Wings in the middle right here, the least expensive one out of these four, they've done a really good job. The weathering is convincing, it's realistic, and considering the Iranian Air Force has like a really, they seem to have like this weird dynamic where every airplane has like different colors, different layers of like weathering and stuff. So to get that right is a challenge for any modeler, and JC Wings definitely nailed it with this guy. And to nail it at the lowest retail price of all four of these is kind of amazing. HobbyMaster, they don't really do weathering. I'm kind of glad for that because with HobbyMaster, you can just decide how much weathering you want to apply or not. Century, I don't think they do weathering either, but most of their models are pretty much clean ones anyway. So, for example, I haven't seen any Century Wings models that have been weathered. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if that is not the case. But be that as it may, the Century Wings over here, it's pretty clean. So is the HobbyMaster over here. That one's pretty clean. The Calibre in the back, they did not weather this one. However, some of Calibre Wings' other models in their lineup are weathered. So just bear that in mind when you're shopping for them. Keep an eye out for that. Calibre didn't weather this guy, and I'm glad they didn't do that because I think some of their weathering is a little heavy-handed, but that's just me. I think the subject of weathering is going to be one of those things that I don't think there's ever going to be a conclusive answer because all of us have different levels of what we consider appropriate weathering. But I will say that in the sense of the Iranian Air Force F-14, it's kind of a good airplane to present as a weathered subject because if it's too heavy, well, there's probably, there's so many different color variations in Iranian Air Force F-14s that you can find an example of light weathering all the way to like really, really, really dark weathering. So suffice it to say, all four of these have really good paint qualities. HobbyMaster, which is usually this is the part when it comes to paint quality where they take a yield to the other sides, but they actually knocked this one pretty darn well out the park. So the HobbyMaster over here, the paint quality is really nicely done too. So this one's kind of a draw, and it's a draw in a good way because all of them have done a great job. The paint on the accessories, meaning the weapons and the attachable stuff, that lead for that's going to go to the Century Wings by a long shot. Their detail on their AIM-9s and their Phoenixes are really well done. The detail on the weapon accessories on these guys are okay. It's not bad, but the Century Wings is definitely it takes a leap ahead. So it's kind of a one. The Century takes a little bit of a leap ahead. The other guys are all pretty much the same dynamic there. So yeah, that sums up paint accuracy. They're all good. Logistics. this is the part where we're going to start to see some interesting differences, because logistics, to me, I define that as the ability to get a certain model at a certain time and place without having to do a lot of work. And then once you get it, do the parts fit? Do the components work? Does it, handle okay? Do the parts all tie together, or do you have to do like filing and gluing to get everything to work? So with all of these models, I think basically, and in terms of logistics, this is a tough one. It's a tough one because we'll just start from the beginning. The Calibre over here, this definitely is on the bottom of the logistics pile, because I ordered that one. I ordered that on pre-order in September of 2020. I didn't even get the airplane at my doorstep until January of 2021. So even if you take a month out for shipping from China directly, or shipping from Hong Kong, I guess, that was a long wait. And that's not the first time that's happened to an order I've made with Calibre 2. My Top Gun F-14 took just about as long to get here. So delays, and you want to be able to just click your pre-order, do your pre-order, and be confident that when the manufacturer says at a certain date it's ready, that it'll be ready. Or if it is delayed, it's not delayed like 6 months or 4 months or some really long period of time, as happened there with that Calibre F-14. So that's going to be the last place on that. And it's also going to be last place in terms of parts fit, because Calibre's accessories, every time I've gotten a Calibre model in, I've had to do some kind of filing or white gluing or both to get the pylons to fit. Thankfully, Iran doesn't really operate their Phoenixes anymore, because this gives me an opportunity to not put them on the airplane, because if I did, I'm not sure I'd be able to take them off again. Just the accessory tolerances for Calibre, for this one in the back right here, it's a bit chancy. This either it doesn't fit, either it falls right off when you try to put the accessory on, like meaning the pylons for the weapons and whatnot, or it doesn't fit at all and you have to sand down or file down the little tabs that hold it in place so it can even pop in. I've had to do that with just about every Calibre model I've ordered, and that combined with the weight means it's going to be at the bottom of the logistics pile by far. With Century over here and HobbyMaster over here, those two have been far and away really good at this. When Century, this one I ordered off the shelf, so I didn't have to pre-order that guy. But when I opened it, the accessories all fit. The landing gear is magnetically attached for the main gears, so really well done. The only problem I had with that was needing to I think the little magnetic tab came off, so I had to glue it back in, but that was a 10-second deal, and nothing else had been problematic with it. So in terms of both being able to order it and being able to enjoy the model without needing to like sand down stuff and file things and all that, it's pretty good. I had to glue one little magnetic attachment point on the landing gear. It's not a big deal. HobbyMaster, I haven't had to do any of that, which is amazing. No need for gluing, no need to file stuff, and it's not just this one. All of the HobbyMasters that I've ordered, I think only one had an issue, and it was a MiG-23 with a landing gear that was a little uneven. So it still fit, but it was a little crooked, and I just sanded down a little bit of the top part of it, and that solved the problem. So HobbyMaster over here, top marks for logistics in terms of all the stuff that you get in the kit that all fits. You don't have to worry about landing gear parts not fitting, or having to sand stuff down, or having to manipulate and glue stuff to get it all to work. It's pretty pain-free, and I like that. I like that a lot, because I know tolerances and things like that, it's a really hard thing to control for. So HobbyMaster, I think, gets #1 marks for this. Century is a slight #2. I only give it #2 because that little plastic, the magnetic component, the little magnetic magnet on the landing gear came off. I just had to glue it back on, and not a big deal, but it does put it slightly behind HobbyMaster in terms of ownership. And this, between these two, I honestly could rank it between, they're fairly close in terms of tolerances, meaning this the Calibre wings and then the JC wings over here. But honestly, the third place probably will go to the JC wings, because the landing gear, I had to sand down the nose door, this guy right here. I had to sand that down so it could fit. I had to fix a stuck wheel on the left side, and I also needed to sand down some pieces of the canopy. You might have actually seen in the montage shots, I had Scotch tape on the other side. That was because the canopy was just not, it was actually standing. There was a gap on this side when you opened it and tried to close it. So to fix the gap, I had to like push the back piece in and do some stuff to get that to correct itself. And part of that correction was taking a piece of Scotch tape and holding that down while that part was being fixed in place. So I had to do that. And then I had to do some filing on the landing gear door right here. So yeah, there is some work that had to go into this one to get the tolerances to go in, and it's just like the Calibre, just sanding and gluing, definitely necessary for some of that small part stuff to fit in there. Now, the reason the JC wings is in third place and the Calibre is in fourth place is the JC wings wasn't delayed multiple months, and the JC wings is $50 cheaper than the Calibre. So for $99 as ordered at this point by myself, it's not good, but okay, $99 is the least expensive model out of the four. So doing some sanding and gluing of small parts like the missiles, or sanding down some of the tabs on the doors, it's annoying, but it's kind of expected. But having to do that when the model costs $150 and you have to wait 4 months, yeah, that's a markdown. So that's wraps up the logistics piece of it. And then to get to the final part, which is the decision of which one of these is my recommendation, if you had to only go with one, because I'd have to stress, as much as I've been throwing tomatoes at some of the things that are present on these models, it should be said that they're all really good. They all look really nice. So if you go with any of these, you're going with something that's pretty darn cool looking, in my book, no matter what. But if you had to pick the winner, because we always need a winner, right, in these kind of things, my decision would be for the HobbyMaster right here. Okay, and the reason is it's a good balance of quality. It's a good balance of the paint accuracy. It's a good balance of the feature accuracy, and it's a good balance of logistics, which is probably the key point. With HobbyMaster, you can go on eBay, you can go on various sellers, you can buy them relatively easily. They're pretty consistent with their release timelines. Their order schedule is pretty reliable. Now, certain colors like this one might be hard to get. At this point, I actually was surprised to see that this was going for like $225 right now on eBay, which is kind of wild, because I certainly did not pay that much when I bought this 2 years ago. But yeah, it's, with some of these models, availability and cost is going to be a funny variable, because what people value and what people don't, that changes depending on like pop culture and what people like and prefer. So, for example, you might watch this video 2 years after I make it, and for some reason the Century wings right here will be really sought after. I'm not, and then the price, of course, goes up to like some astronomical number because of it. So, yeah, I can't predict what that's going to look like. I will say, probably maybe getting myself into some trouble here, but Top Gun 2, the sequel, has been delayed on account of the pandemic. So if everything goes well in terms of vaccines and whatnot, it's supposed to be coming out this summer. And if it comes out, I'm going to be curious to see how the plot turns out, because allegedly, a little birdie told me in the rumor mill that the Iranian F-14s are going to play a role in that movie in some respect, and how Tom Cruise gets his hand on one in the sequel. So I'm not sure I'm not sure if that plot thread runs through and how that materializes in the movie, but I mention it because there's a possibility that after that movie comes out, Iranian F-14 models might spike in prices or become hard to get. And if that happens, well, you know, the costs I mentioned here, you're probably going to watch this and think that I'm just out there. But at this point, as of March 2020, this guy was about 150. This guy was about 99. This was 165 2 years ago. It's definitely not that now. And Calibre sells their F-14 for about 150 before shipping. So the JC Wings in the middle is probably the least expensive one right now. And actually for a model of being the least expensive, it's actually pretty well done. The paint looks good, and I'm going to kind of show you right here. The rudders actually move on this guy. So both of the rudders will turn, which is kind of nice. Definitely don't see that with the other three. So nice of JC Wings to incorporate some extra presentment functionality at the price point they do. But the HobbyMaster takes the cake, I believe, because it combines the value, right? You're not spending a huge amount of money. I think they generally go for about 125 to 150 brand new if it's a desirable model. They're generally easy to get. When they release, they follow their dates. There's no 2-month, 3-month delay, and you don't know what's going on. And more importantly, they tend to be easy to acquire at all times, right? Which is the advantage of the HobbyMaster over the Century, because Century likes to do this deal where they release 600 or 800 models of a certain line, and then that's it. They're done. So, then 2 years down the line, you try to get one, and it's like, well, good luck. You really can't, because you missed the boat, and now there might be one guy selling his for like $300, and if you want one, you either pay the money or you don't get one. So with Century Wings, I'm going to put them at a lower level than HobbyMaster because of that dynamic. HobbyMaster has a bigger rotation of models and color schemes and things like that. So because of that, and the fact that the price is a bit more reasonable, and the fact that their release dates are relatively accurate with when they say they're going to ship something, it's generally going to be that month or the month later. They don't have unexplained delays or release issues or any of those things. And then finally, and this is the element that puts HobbyMaster over the other three to me, is logistics. I'll say it again, it's just really more satisfying of an ownership experience to just pick up the model, buy it, you open the box, you display it, you put the parts you want to on it. If you want Phoenix missiles, you show the Phoenixes. If you want the landing gear, you show the landing gear. If you don't, you want it in flight, you put it on the stand, and it's all ready to go. It's not, you don't have to order the stand separately like you do with the other ones. The HobbyMaster ones come with the stand in there, so bully for them on that. Plus, the HobbyMaster stuff fits. You want to put a missile on, you can do it. You want to put the Phoenixes on, you can. If you don't want to put them on, you don't have to. You get everything that you need, really, to show the airplane, and it'll fit. It's not a dynamic where you have to break out files and sanding blocks and tools because maybe it fits and maybe it doesn't, as is the case with the center ones here, the JC Wings and the Calibre over there. The Century Wings, I haven't had any issues with stuff fitting besides that one magnet coming off of the landing gear. Again, that was an easy fix. However, they only do like 600 to 800 models in a release, and when they run, it's kind of a one-time thing. They release a run of models, and then that's it. They don't really redo them again, and they don't do mass production. And as a result, most collectors will keep an eye out for Century Wings as releases, and then after a really short period of time they tend to sell out, and then that's it. That's kind of the dynamic there, and I can speak to that because not only did I order this Century Wings pretty much brand new off the shelf at a distributor, I've also ordered one secondhand, and it wasn't pleasant. I bought an A6 intruder, one of their A6 intruder 1/72nd scale ones, which I'll do a video on later. And yeah, that was an odyssey. That was also my most expensive model. It also took the most amount of time to get to me, and that whole experience has shown me that sometimes limited editions are not that much fun. I know they gratify the people that collect them when they're brand new, but when you get into collecting as a hobby and the one that you want, you look on the website and the catalog and you see the one that you want, and it's this really nice model, and then you realize, oh, it came out 6 months ago, and now you have to order it from some guy in a country that's on the other side of the world from where you live. Then you have to wait months for it to cross customs and all these things. You have to pay a huge amount of money. It's not a fun time. It's not a fun experience. And HobbyMaster has a diverse number of different color schemes where even if you don't necessarily, you may not necessarily be able to get a specific color like this one, you can still find a HobbyMaster release either coming soon or one that was in the recent past or one that's still on sale that will probably scratch your collecting itch. So for that, I would definitely give HobbyMaster the lead on this one. And I do want to put in a positive word for the JC Wings here, because it seems like this whole video I've just been beating on it, and it's actually a really good model for $99 US. It's a really good model, and I know what it's like to be that guy, or that, to be somebody who, you're looking at your budget, you're looking at your dollars, you're looking at your bills, and you're thinking, gee, I got 50 cents left at the end of the month. How am I going to afford this thing? I know what that's like. And sometimes you don't have the option of just, okay, I'm going to save up for this more expensive version, because maybe the more expensive version sells out for the reasons I've mentioned earlier in the video. Maybe you're trying to save money to buy a 1/72nd scale model, but you're not going to have the money in hand by the time the release date comes. And in the case of the Century, it's one of those deals where if you don't have a pre-order in by the release date, good luck. They're probably going to sell out quick. So, if you're in that situation of needing to budget your money because you have responsibilities to pay for, it's not necessarily a good position to be in where the item you want, right, you can't get because you're trying to save money. So sometimes you have to look at your budget and go, hey, I have to make this decision to get this thing instead of this other thing. And with the JC Wings, I'm glad to say that if I were in a position where I had to choose between spending $100 on this guy or $150 on the Calibre, and it was a choice between either or, and the Calibre had an uncertain ship date and an uncertain pre-order date, and I wasn't sure when it was going to arrive, I'd be okay with the JC Wings. I'd be happy with it, honestly. I would be happy with this. I wouldn't be happy with the fact of, okay, I can't rely on Calibre's order timelines, but the fact is, the JC Wings is a pretty cool looking model, and for $99, it's a rather compelling option, especially if you're dead set on this particular color, or you're just looking for a really good model and you don't want to spend more money than you have to. So good job from them on making this as cool as it is. I'm glad to have it in the collection, even if it is the least expensive and potentially the most troublesome accordingly. And thank you for tuning in and watching to this point. Please feel free, once again, to leave your thoughts in the appropriate place in the comments box below. And thanks for your time, and thanks for watching. Have a good day.